Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Hello and welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. I know that you guys and gals love charts. You love candlesticks, moving averages, indicators, all that good stuff. But you need the tools to be able to do charting effectively. That's going to make you a better trader and investor. And in case you didn't know it already, I've been a big fan of this one charting platform, and fortunately, I'm in contact with Jake from TrendSpider.com, and he's going to show me he's going to show you not only what's going on in the markets that you need to look at, and perhaps a few tips, tricks, and strategies for charting to become more effective, but also we're going to tell you about a platform called TrendSpider.com that's really going to blow you away. If you haven't checked this out, you really need to. So what you want to do before we get started is remember that below this video in the description section, there's going to be a link that will take you to TrendSpider.com if you want to check it out, okay, and you definitely will. So welcome to Looking at the Markets, Jake from TrendSpider. I appreciate it today.
Thank you for letting me jump on the video again and talk a little bit about our platform and how you can use it on an everyday kind of basis.
Yeah, so what are you seeing right now in the markets, and how can we use this platform to perhaps get a better reading of what's going on?
Sure. So one of the main things that you can do on the platform, the platform is very robust. So there's not, a main feature that to focus on, but one of the main things that I like to use, especially when we see a big breakdown in the market like this, so you can see, back in late July, we pretty much went straight down. And during that time, I had the SMA 20 up and I had the EMA 50 up, the daily, these two solid lines. And what I was looking at was, okay, are these lines going to hold? And these are just the moving averages that I use. This isn't, advice on what moving averages to use. They're just the ones that I've found to be very helpful in the way that I do my analysis. So, but, when these started to break down, I'm sitting there like, okay, well, the daily moving averages have broke down. Maybe I need to start looking at more of a top-down approach and looking at the longer-term moving averages, but using the same ones. So the SMA 20 and the EMA 50, but not from the daily, but from the weekly. So here you can see where we finally found a bottom here was actually the EMA 50 from the weekly chart. So on most charting platforms, or if not all, there's no way to be able to see how the shorter term price action is going to interact with the longer term indicators and trend lines. In this case, you can see the daily chart is interacting with this this weekly moving average very bullish. So anytime that we did test this general area with a small margin of error, as you can see by this purple area, you can see each time these wicks bounced right out of this zone, and then we continued up to try to test the daily EMA 50. But even if I overlay the SMA 20 from the weekly, you can see this was also just absolutely gapped down from, and that's finally where we did catch a bid right at this area. So those are the two areas that I'm watching on the chart. Let me put these two back on. But what I also have here, and this is something that's pretty new to the platform, is the ability to anchor my VWAP from a specific candle. And this comes from the strategy that Brian Shannon uses from Alpha Trends. He's the founder of alphatrends.com. And he created this mindset where why just look at the VWAP from an entire kind of range with a different input? Why not actually anchor it from an important part of the chart? In this case, this is important because this is where we finally caught a bottom. And if we really wanted to get technical, this is where we technically caught a bottom. So if I want to remove this and add another one, all I have to do is right click, create an Alpha Trends VWAP, and what I can do here is simply just remove this. This dotted line is actually the weekly VWAP, but I don't want to see that right now. I just want to see the daily. And you can see how perfectly this general line has held. But if we even anchor it from this area as well, you can see this held pretty well when we did first kind of pull back once we did have this bounce. So all in all, these are just some of the general ways that I like to use the platform looking at the overall picture. So for me, it's very interesting to see how we've literally just been in this constant range between the weekly and the daily EMA 50. And this was actually the second day now that we've opened above the EMA 50 since breaking down below it. So all in all, these would be the main areas that I would call your status quo, if you will. And I call it a status quo because right now the market is kind of just in the doldrums, if you will. It's just range bound up and down between two very distinct areas. But, if we start to break above this general area, that's where things may get interesting. If we break below this general area, which has been support, when we finally did catch a bottom in early June, this would be where I would call, the status quo of the market changing, where, bears may have kind of taken control. So that's something that's very unique about the platform. And the cool thing about this is these anchored VWAPs are on other platforms, a few of them, not too many. But the ability to actually create an alert on the VWAP. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to remove this so we have one. And you can see, let's say that the price action breaks down through this weekly EMA 50, and this actually already has an alert on it. But if I want to, let's say, layer the support, meaning, we break down through here, and then I want to capture if we break down through here, I'm just going to create an alert at this line, and you'll see, let's say that I only want to be alerted when the price action tests this exact line. I would then only choose sensitivity pretty much at 0, because that means the alert is going to fire when the price hits the selected line precisely. But let's say I don't think we're going to get exactly there. Maybe I think, unlike this candle, we may bounce a little above this line. What I can do is start increasing the area at which I will receive an alert, and that means I don't have to wait for the price action to maybe get exactly to this line. I'm increasing the area that the alert is going to fire. In this case, it's $1.54 from the selected line. And as I move this to the right, you'll see that number continues to increase, and you see this purple area continue to get wider and wider. I personally don't like to go too far to the right. I generally do like to see some type of margin of error around the line, because at the end of the day, these moving averages, these trend lines, they're not always hit precisely. There's sometimes where there's a reversal before you actually get to it.
Yeah, so I just want to interject. This is so cool. I have not seen this on any other charting platform that I know of, at least, where you can increase or decrease the sensitivity of the touch point or the bounce or the breakthrough. A lot of times, you want to adjust exactly how sensitive it is. Like, what does it mean to break through or break down or break out when it comes to moving averages, VWAP, and all those? Will you accept it if it's just kind of close? Does it actually have to break all the way through it? Can it just touch it? What does touch even mean? How close does it have to be? And so you can visually see with the light purple there on the screen what the sensitivity is on TrendSpider.com on the platform. You can adjust it just like Jake's doing right now. You have several different types: breakthrough, touch, bounce. I've never seen that anywhere else. That is so cool, and it's a proprietary feature as far as I know for TrendSpider. Very cool. Now I understand that the Alpha Trends anchored VWAP, I might need to make a separate video on that one, because look at how predictive that is. Look how perfectly the S&P 500 or the Spider's SPY ETF bounced right off of it. Also notice the weekly EMA 50, the 50-period EMA support. Plenty of data points there. I mean, I see plenty of wicks bouncing right off of that. We got a lot going on in the markets that lends itself really well to technical analysis. This is so cool, Jake. What else am I looking at here?
So one thing that I want to show, a really cool case study of the sensitivity feature. If I just remove these, let me just move them over. I'm going to pull up the SMA 20 right now, and you'll see the SMA 20 on the daily. Let's say that you were trading the last couple days, not necessarily today, but what you can see here is The price action, and this is a great example of what we were just talking about, see how the price action never got exactly to that line?
Right.
So if you would have had an alert just on this line, you would have never been able to capture this little top before we pulled back. However, if you created the alert with the sensitivity, you can see how those wicks are then captured within that purple area.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to mention, these are daily candles, right? So if they're daily candles and the confirmation candle is a daily, that means you need to wait for the entire day's candle to close before you get an alert through your phone or your email. Now, if you do the confirmation candle lower to, let's say, a 5-minute candle, you'll see here that anytime the 5-minute candle closes in this area, which is part of this smaller, this daily wick, then you'll be alerted intraday and you'll say, okay, I either want to scale out, I want to scale in, I want to short. So you don't have to wait for that daily candle to close, but you still are concerned about how the daily candle looks. You just want that shorter term time frame to be alerted at.
Right.
So that's something that you can really utilize as well, and just a cool example of that.
Very cool.
Now, one thing that I want to mention as well, something that's very unique, are raindrops. Now, raindrops, before getting too deep into them and into this chart, essentially raindrops are something that, let me just remove this and this, so we just have the raindrop. You'll see here a typical candle. This is a daily raindrop of United Healthcare. Now, what we have here is we've got the left side and the right side. Now, typically, if you have a bar chart, you know this is either your open or your close, these bars. Instead of being the open and the close, this is actually the VWAP on the left side of the candle, which is the first half of the period. So you can see this is the first half, the right side is the second half. And what you can decipher from this is a few things. One, you can see on each side on top of the VWAP is the volume by price, kind of the volume profile overlaid on the price action. So you can see, like any other candle, the top here is your high of the period, the bottom here is the low of the period, but in between, instead of just being a regular candle, you can see that during the first half of the period, a lot of this volume is focused at the bottom of the range here. So you can see that there's not a ton of volume holding or actually traded in this area. You can see a lot of this volume is aggregating at the bottom of the price area, showing that is this possibly sellers just coming in and picking up on selling pressure, or is the price low? Did the price drop on low volume? And is this buyers coming in and starting to kind of aggregate and accumulate down here? So there's a few different ways to look at this. And one thing that I want to show you is the blue raindrop, and that's something I'm going to focus on. So the VWAP, whenever the right side VWAP is below the left side, or the second half of the period is below the first half, that's when you're going to have a red candle or a red raindrop. When you can see these two bars are very close to each other or exactly the same level, this is what a blue raindrop is, when you essentially have like a true doji. And that means that instead of a doji with the open and close price, you have a doji with the actual VWAP for the first and the second half of the period. And then finally, opposite of red, you've got your green candle, which is when the right side VWAP is higher than the left side, i.e. the second half of the period's volume-weighted average price is higher than the first, and that's why it's green. So what I want to show on this chart, and all in all, I would have to say blue raindrops are something that are really worth checking out. You can see on this screen really quick before I show the other example, anytime that we've got a blue raindrop, you can see this here. Let me just type in raindrop doji so we can see these visually. Anytime you've got a blue raindrop, you can see there's a huge move. So in this case, if I do measure the move here, here's a blue raindrop at the top. Within 12 bars, you have a 12% move to the downside. Now, what happens? You've got a blue raindrop within this little valley after a massive move to the downside. And then you've got a huge move to the upside. Within 8 bars, you've moved up almost 10%. So what these are is they're ways to capture volatility. They're not always going to tell you, which way that volatility is going. But what it does is it will show you, okay, you've just had a big move to the upside right here. There's a blue raindrop that forms at the top, and you've also got a previous area here which you found as resistance. So if you've got a blue raindrop forming on an area like this where you've got previous resistance, it may be indicative of, okay, we found resistance again, and there may be some volatility coming, especially since we're on resistance. That volatility may be to the downside. Now you compare that to this raindrop, blue raindrop, and we kind of see we are near a general bottom here that we found previously. And so, after a huge move to the downside, a blue raindrop forming down here may be a little more predictive of a move to the upside than a downside, because at this point the move down is exhausted and you can only have so many sellers at a certain point. Those sellers have to cover their short, and that's how you get this little relief bounce here before the next leg down.
Yeah, those blue raindrops have been extremely predictive in terms of reversals and big moves on this stock here, which is UNH, United Healthcare Daily. I was going to say candlestick chart, but it's a raindrop chart, and you're not going to find these raindrops anywhere else as far as I know. This is proprietary to TrendSpider, and again, you can get this by going to TrendSpider.com or clicking the link in the description below this video. These are so cool because you get more information than with traditional candlesticks or OHLC bars, because you're getting a volume profile. That's what makes those cool shapes, as well as the colors. You get the open, high, low, and close, sure, but you get so much more with these. I like these.
Thank you. And this is a cool example of anchoring the VWAP. So we talked about anchoring the VWAP previously at the bottom of the S&P's drop. In this case, what I've done, and this is before this blue raindrop formed, what I did was I anchored the VWAP from the previous 2 blue raindrops. And you can see over time as the VWAP started to kind of, smooth out, if you will, from this volatile action here, you can see as the price moved up, these 2 VWAP areas acted as support. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then finally the price action broke down here. And so what you can even take from this is, this is a pretty cool area to watch. And so I wouldn't say anchoring the VWAP from the last 2 blue raindrops on every chart is going to work, but it's like the MACD or anything else. The MACD may work really well on one chart and it may not work at all on another chart. That's the same thing with how blue raindrops work, with anchoring the blue raindrops, and even Alpha Trend's anchored VWAP in general. Every chart is going to have a slightly different view in how those things are shown. But this is cool, right? Because we can see here that during this breakdown, we can see a lot of volume is really picking up here. And so this is really interesting to see. Are these sellers, or is this kind of buyers coming in and just buying up the bottom here? So we'll have to see. But one thing that I wanted to show lastly in this is how you can really utilize not even blue raindrops, just the volume profile on raindrops, and compare that against a hollow candle. So in this case, you can see we've got a big move down. This is back in October, and then we finally bottomed in December. This is the QQQ, so the NASDAQ ETF. And what you can see here is I connected these 2 points. So I've got 1 point, 2 point, I've got another point here. So this is a decent trend line. You've got 3 touch points on this area. You've got a 4th area that tries to actually break out here. But what's important to note here, and let me just remove this red so you can see it better. You can see during the first half of the period, i.e. the left side of this candle, a little blip of volume tried to kind of pop up above this line. So we can see that there was some price action at this area, but it wasn't much. And then during the second half of the period, there was no volume above this trend line. It was flat. And we know that there was no price action at this area because there's no volume profile. All of this volume profile is focused below the trend line here, and that's what kind of told us we had a continuation to the downside after, and this was actually the start of our next leg down. Now, compare that to this raindrop, which actually has a ton of volume over this trend line. So you can see that in this case, buyers had conviction when they pushed the price over this trend line. And if you compare that to a regular hollow candle, you can see that during the hollow candle's action, sure, there's a wick here, but we don't know anything about this wick.
Right.
We don't know if there was volume or anything. We just know that the price closed right at the trend line. However, when we show the raindrop, you can see there was actually, within this wick, there was a ton of volume there. There was a ton of volume that was actually holding above the trend line, and then that's how we have our continuation up after that.
Yeah.
So as David said, this gives you a lot more information within one candle than you're going to get just based on the low, high, open, and close. This is telling you the low, the high, the VWAP for the first half of the period, the VWAP for the second, and then showing you how the volume is flowing throughout that particular period.
That's great, because with with regular traditional candlesticks, sure, you can put the volume bars on the bottom of the screen, I guess, but that's not going to tell you what time of day, especially if it's daily candlesticks, that's not going to tell you what time of day that volume really came in to the bullish side of things or to the bearish side of things. So there's a tip and a strategy right there. If you're using daily candlestick charts, you want to know what happened during the end of the day, the second half of that day, of that period. When did the volume come in? Because that, as you can see in this QQQ, which is the NASDAQ ETF, when did it come in? When did the volume and the buyers come in? That is very significant information. And if you just have regular, traditional, old volume bars, that's not going to give you that granular detail as to what happened and when it happened. And so you're kind of painting a fuller picture, a more complete picture with these raindrops. Again, really cool, really informative.
Thank you. And, that's something that's really cool as well. Let's say that you want to test the raindrops out. That's one of the biggest things for me, because let's say I go to Netflix, which actually is one of the coolest charts to find raindrops on. You'll see that they're not incredibly common, but they do happen pretty often. And so instead of me having to go in and say, all right, let me see each one of these raindrops and how it's performed, what I can do is just go to the strategy tester. I can put this in. My parameter is simply just looking for a condition. That condition is a candlestick pattern, which is a raindrop doji, which is what we define as a blue raindrop. And so I want to see how that raindrop forms after 10 candles, test that. And, this is my favorite part, is just easily seeing this on the screen without having to do any manual work. So in this case, we can see anytime. And actually, let's go to the strategy tester and only show this on the chart. So you can see the analysis depth here. We were just looking back 2,000 candles, but let's just back test the actual chart, and then we'll reset that, test it, and let me get rid of these execution marks. We'll reset it on the chart. You can see where the back test is started here, and you can see here's our first blue raindrop, and you can see within 10 candles, there was a 2.2% move down. However, you can see within the first two candles, there was actually a much bigger move down. We can see here within this blue raindrop to this blue raindrop, that was almost a 7% move, or over 7% move down. So if you want to capture the volatility in between this entry and this exit signal, you can go to download CSV, and that's going to show you, okay, what's the max drawdown? What's the max gain? Because, you can enter a position, let's say that you're long on a stock. Well, just because you go long and you've back tested something, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to incur unrealized losses before you actually go green. So you can see here that sometimes, these blue raindrops don't always react immediately, but a lot of the time they do. You can see here, you've got a hard move down, you've got a blue raindrop and a hard move up. You've got a really hard move down here and a huge move to the upside. This says exit of 1.98%, but that's only because it's giving us the return after this 10th day, because our exit condition in this case is a length of time after 10 candles, but we actually had a bigger measured move here, which was closer to 10% rather than 2. So just make sure you utilize this download CSV to capture those volatile times in between the actual entry and exit. And we actually will be working on showing these max gains, max drawdowns on the chart as well when we do improve the back tester.
Yeah, and I always recommend to people test whatever strategy you're thinking of using. Test it out, back test it, forward test it, test it this way and that way. Make sure that it works before you commit any capital to any strategy. And hey, if you're a coder, if you know how to do all the coding to backtest on your own, cool. But that's not me. Okay, I don't know how to necessarily do all the coding stuff. And so you can use a tool like this to do all the work for you, and it's a lot easier. So I like this testing ability on TrendSpider.
I don't know how to code either. I'm one of the founding members of the team, but the beautiful thing about any team is everyone has their own strengths, and our development team is just absolutely amazing, and they have the ability to give somebody like me who doesn't know how to code the ability to go in, create the logic that I understand. I just don't know the coding language. So as long as you know the logic that you're going after, whether that's I know that I want to test the MACD crossing to the upside with the RSI closing above 50. If you know those conditions, you can put that in this visual interface without having to use PineScript or Python or anything like that. So let's say that you do like the blue raindrop and you want to create an alert next time that happens. Just click alert me next time this happens. You see here, instead of any coding, all I have is the raindrop doji is formed, and then I can create an alert. Let's say that I want to know when the raindrop doji is formed, but I also want to know at the same time when the MACD has crossed. I just do MACD fast, has crossed up through the MACD, the daily MACD slow. And so now whenever both of these conditions occur, I'll get an alert. Let's say that I only want to know if any of these happen. As long as one of these two occur, I'll get an alert. So it's up to you if you want all of the conditions to occur. If you want any of the conditions to occur, you can change that in here. You can change the name. You can increase the expiration time up to 45 days for my particular account based on whatever price subscription that you choose. That will change. It can go up higher than that. So make sure to check out the pricing page to see which plan would work best for you. But these are some of the main things to try out, and I highly recommend giving it a shot and seeing if this is for you. We do have a free trial, so you don't have to commit right away. You can try before you buy.
I don't see why people wouldn't want to at least check out the free trial, but they're going to have to go to TrendSpider.com, either in their browser, on their phone, their laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever you have. Just type it right in, just like that. You'll see that front page. You can click on free trial. You could sign up, or just start with one of the plans. I mean, look at how affordable those are. They're not asking for thousands and thousands of dollars here. All right, this is very affordable monthly plans. Or again, just start out with that free trial, see if you like it first. And they have yearly plans, save up to 35%. Very nice. So either go to TrendSpider.com in your browser, type it right in, or you can click on the referral link in the description below this video. Either way is good with me, as long as you check it out. Well, I learned a whole lot from this, and there are other features that we didn't even have time to go over so much, like all the trend lines. I mean, you can have automated trend line. Maybe you could show us real quick. I mean, with the click, literally the click of a button, you get all of the most important trend lines that you could possibly need for a stock all at once, and then you pick and choose which ones you like the most. I mean, it's really automated, really cool, and tailored to your type of trading or investing style. Now, think about how long it would take me to draw all those trend lines, and I am so sloppy with my artistry that my trend lines would look terrible compared to this. So this is how it's done, folks. Very, very neat, very cool. I like it a lot.
the way this works, and I won't take long explaining this, but the way this works is you can see I just went to show trends and I went to all or unfiltered. So this is actually every single line the system is finding based on these particular preferences I'm in. As you see, when I change this, the analysis type is simply just measuring the distance between the candles. So enhanced is going to measure candles that are closer together. Original, you'll see that less lines are going to show up here because it's measuring a further distance between the candles. And you can also have the system look for different things. These aren't TrendSpider's lines. These are your lines that you automate with the system to how you want to look at the price action. In this case, if you don't want to use wick to wick, you can have the system draw your lines body to body. You can have the system respect or ignore gaps in price, and that's also going to change how these lines are drawn and how the system looks for them. Notice how I just changed all of these different preferences and the lines changed as well. Let's say you don't want to look at all the lines. You can go to most relevant, and then these are going to be the most relevant lines the system finds. But you also have to make sure that the platform is up to date. The system has not done analysis since the 13th of August, and it's the 21st today. So always make sure your timestamp has refresh and locked if there's irrelevant lines now. So notice when I refresh and lock, these lines are going to change a little bit, and it's actually finding different lines. And as I mentioned, you simply change these from original to enhanced, and it's going to find different lines on the chart. Notice how I switched to enhanced, and it just found this lower line now. Let's say I change this from body to wick. It's going to capture the wicks now rather than the bodies. So very flexible, very robust, and we'd love to have you check it out and see if this is something that adds value to you.
Fantastic. I've learned quite a bit. I am blown away by TrendSpider's platform. I don't know anything else that even comes close to this. Jake, we're going to have you back in the future for sure to give us an update on the markets and for more, TrendSpider magic and trend lines, all the cool stuff, the raindrops. I mean, we're going to have to revisit this and get an update sometime soon. So thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this presentation. There's much more to come, and thank you, Jake, from TrendSpider.com. Thanks for stopping by.